Did Denzel Washington just call Stephen Colbert swine in live TV? That was the question lighting up social media before the broadcast even ended. What started as a typical late-night interview spiraled into one of the most shocking moments. In modern television, no warning, no build-up, just a nuclear collision between one of Hollywood's most respected icons and a host who thought he could corner him with faith, politics, and gotcha questions. Denzel had come to promote a film about redemption. What he didn't expect was to be pushed into a corner, interrogated, and publicly tested on his personal beliefs. The moment he realized what was happening, everything changed. He stood up, he walked off the set, and the internet hasn't stopped talking since. But what really happened inside that studio? Why did one of the most graceful men in show business finally snap, and what does it reveal about the growing divide between celebrity, politics, and public performance? We're breaking it all down from the first smirk to the final insult hand. Trust me, it gets uglier than you think. Before we dive in, don't forget to like this video, drop a comment, and subscribe for more raw, unfiltered moments from inside Hollywood's most guarded circles. But here's the real question. If you were in Denzel's shoes, would you have walked away, stayed, and gone toe-to-toe in front of millions? The Ed Sullivan Theater was buzzing, bright lights, humming cameras, and the steady rhythm of a late-night machine that had run smoothly for years. In the crowd, fans clutched tickets they'd waited months to get. They weren't expecting fireworks. They came for the usual laughs, smiles, maybe a viral soundbite. But nothing earth-shattering. Denzel Washington was in the building. He'd arrived that afternoon to promote his latest directorial work, a raw, introspective drama centered on brokenness, healing, and the human need for grace. Critics were already calling it his finest film to date, the kind of project that reignites award season buzz and cements legacies. For Denzel, this was more than a press stop. It was a strategic push, a moment that mattered. But behind the scenes, something wasn't right. Sources close to the taping whispered that the show's writing staff had been in overdrive. All day not polishing jokes, but crafting questions. Not questions, really, traps. One insider allegedly described them as pressure points meant to expose, not explore. The plan, they said, was to push Denzel out of his comfort zone, to challenge his long-standing image of calm wisdom and force him into political territory he rarely treads in public. Stephen Colbert, emboldened by an audience that leaned heavily progressive, had reportedly told his team, "Let's see what happens when we poke the lion." The cameras rolled. The theme song played. The monologue landed its usual blend of sarcasm and smugness. And from the outside, everything looked normal. But backstage, Denzel's publicist stood frozen just beyond the curtain, clutching her clipboard with white knuckles. She'd overheard the rehearsal, heard Colbert practicing lines that had nothing to do with the film. Questions about religion, politics, culture wars. She knew her client well enough to sense it. Something was about to go off-script. Then came the applause. Denzel walked onto the stage to thunderous cheers, wearing that familiar, warm smile, the one that disarms even the harshest interviewers. He shook Colbert's hand, took his seat, and settled into what should have been a smooth, respectful conversation between two seasoned professionals. The opening minutes delivered just that. Colbert complimented the film's craftsmanship. They traded light banter, a joke about Denzel's perfectionism, a mention of his relentless work ethic. The audience laughed, relaxed, and settled in. Then Colbert leaned back in his chair. His smile remained, but the energy shifted. "So this film," he began, tone casual but sharp around the edges, "deals with some pretty heavy themes: redemption, forgiveness. Given your faith background, I have to ask, how did your personal beliefs shape your approach to this story?" Was a fair question. Denzel nodded, thoughtful, his body relaxed but alert. "Well, Stephen," he said, "I think for anyone, regardless of what faith they follow, belief gives you a framework for understanding forgiveness. This character I'm portraying He's made real mistakes, serious ones, but he's trying to find his way back to who he was before life broke him down. The crowd murmured its approval. A classic Denzel answer. Wise, measured, human. But Colbert didn't nod, didn't smile. He leaned forward, his tone sharpening. Right, but let's dig into that a bit. You've been pretty open about your Christian faith over the years, and I respect that. But isn't there something a little ironic about someone in Hollywood, a place built on illusion and fantasy preaching about moral values? The air thickened. A flicker of tension passed over Denzel's face, barely visible, unmistakable to anyone watching closely. His publicist, still standing backstage, stiffened. This wasn't what they'd been told the interview would be. I wouldn't call it preaching, Denzel replied carefully, his tone still calm. When you're given a platform, you have a responsibility to be honest about who you are. I don't tell anyone what to believe. Just share what's real for me. People can take what they want from that or leave it. It was a diplomatic answer, one that respected both the host and the audience. But Colbert didn't blink. In fact, it only seemed to encourage him. You've been quiet, though, Colbert continued, the grin now thin and calculated, especially when it comes to certain sensitive topics. You talk about faith and values in your films and interviews, but on issues like marriage equality, reproductive rights, or the role of religion in politics, you've kept things pretty vague. So people might say that's playing both sides. You claim the moral compass of faith, but you sidestep the heat that comes with it. The audience stilled, no chuckles, no claps, just a sharp, sudden silence that swallowed the room. Even the band, usually ready with a musical interjection, stayed frozen. Denzel didn't move. His jaw was tight now, but his tone remained even. I think there's a misunderstanding here, Stephen. My faith teaches love, not judgment. When I talk about values, I'm not dictating how anyone else should live. I'm talking about working hard, honoring your family, treating people with dignity. I'm not a politician. I'm an artist, not running for anything. From backstage, his publicist began pacing. She was texting someone, his manager. Maybe? You could feel the electricity in the control room. It's too much, too fast, Colbert wasn't backing down. He pressed in. Okay, but let's be real here, he said, voice inching toward condescension. You attend church regularly? These topics, abortion, same-sex marriage, they come up in sermons. Are you saying they don't? That you don't have an opinion on them? It's because silence on issues like that, especially from someone with your influence, is a kind of position, isn't it? This time, the camera lingered on Denzel's face. The smile was gone. He sat forward slightly, controlled, focused. Are you interviewing me about my film? He asked. Or are you looking for a viral headline? A nervous ripple passed through. The audience, some shifted in their seats. A few left to knees, uncertain if they were supposed to, but Colbert, he looked invigorated. This was the moment he'd been building toward. I'm trying to have an honest conversation, he said, adjusting his cards. You have a platform. People look up to you. If you're going to talk about faith and values, don't people deserve to know what that actually means? Especially now when things are so divided. Denzel didn't blink, but his knuckles whitened around the arms of the chair. And who decides what matters? He asked. You, your audience, or the people who go see the film and walk away feeling like maybe, just maybe, there's still a little hope left in the world. That line landed. There was a spatter of applause, but also visible discomfort. Some clapped, others glanced around, unsure where to stand. But Colbert saw the moment slipping and doubled down. We live in dangerous times, he fired back. Democracy is under threat. Women's rights are being stripped away. LGBTQ+ people are facing a new wave of discrimination. And here you are, talking about moral values without addressing any of it. That raises questions, Denzel. Real questions. From the wings, Denzel's publicist had stepped forward, ready to intervene. On the booth, the producers were exchanging glances, some concerned, some just stunned. Denzel's voice rose just slightly. For the first time, you could hear the edge. Beneath the calm, moral authority. He repeated, I never claimed any moral authority. I'm not out here telling people how to live. I talk about what's helped me survive, what's helped me grow. I make films that mean something to me. You invited me here under the impression we were talking about that work. But now? He glanced around the studio. Now it feels like something else entirely. Colbert leaned in. I'm holding you accountable. You talk about redemption and second chances, but when it comes to standing up for something bigger than yourself, you go quiet. That's not faith. That's cowardice dressed up in wisdom. The word cowardice hit the floor like a dropped microphone. A few audience members gasped. Others sat completely still, as if unsure whether they'd just seen a line crossed. Denzel straightened out. The warmth had vanished from his voice. You want to talk about faith? He asked. My faith taught me to turn the other cheek. But it also taught me not to cast pearls before swine. The silence that followed was thunderous. Colbert's face went pale. The audience wasn't sure whether to gasp or applaud, so it did both. Did you just call me swine on my own show? Colbert asked, half laughing, half shaking. Denzel's reply was a quiet razor. I'm calling it like I see it. You sit behind that desk and tear people down for sport. What would you call that? In the control booth, panic was setting in. Producers were waving frantically to cut to commercial. The segment had gone completely off the rails. But Colbert's rigid, ego-bruised shook his head and waved them off. He wasn't letting this moment go. This is journalism, he snapped. This is what it looks like when powerful people are asked hard questions. You make movies about morality and second chances, but when someone asks where you stand on the real issues, you deflect. That's not courage, Denzel. That's cowardice. Denzel interrupted, rising slowly from his chair. He didn't shout, he didn't flinch. But when he stood, the entire energy of the room shifted. His presence, his sheer stillness was louder than any outburst. Let me tell you something about cowardice. Stephen, he said, his voice cold, clear. Cowardice is hiding behind jokes when you want to throw punches. Cowardice is pretending to invite someone to a conversation, then blindsiding them for a clip that gets shared online. You didn't bring me here for dialogue. You brought me here to corner me. Colbert stood too, trying to match the moment. But he looked smaller and visibly rattled. I'm not hiding behind anything, he snapped. I'm asking direct questions about what you believe. If you can't handle that, maybe you shouldn't be doing interviews. Maybe I shouldn't, Denzel said quietly. Maybe I should stick to working with people who know the difference between an interview and an interrogation. Rippled through the crowd. This wasn't a late-night taping anymore. It was a televised standoff. The rhythm of comedy, applause, and canned charm had evaporated. In its place was something raw, unfiltered, and very real. You think I'm being unprofessional? Colbert shot back. His voice was rising now, cracking slightly under pressure. You've been deflecting since you sat down. Acting like you're too good for real questions. You use your faith like a shield, but you won't actually take a stand on anything. You want to be respected without ever risking anything. Denzel didn't raise his voice, but his words struck with surgical precision. I think professionalism is honoring the agreement we made, he said. Your producers told my team this conversation was about the film. Not politics, not wedge issues. You want to talk about respect. Start by respecting people's time, their work, their boundaries. Colbert's face was flushed now. His cool satirical armor had crumbled. What remained was something angrier, more desperate. Oh, come on, he barked. You're one of the highest paid actors in the world. You can handle a few tough questions. Or are you saying your faith only works when the world plays nice with you? That was the moment the line was crossed. Denzel's expression shifted not with rage, but with something deeper, disappointment. You want to talk about faith? He said, stepping toward the desk. My faith taught me to love my enemies, to walk humbly. But it also taught me to recognize when someone's twisting the truth for entertainment. What you're doing isn't courageous, Stephen, it's performative. You're not challenging me, you're putting on a show. The audience was frozen. A few murmured, others simply watched, eyes wide, mouths slightly open. Real courage, Denzel continued, is making something beautiful in a broken world. It's telling stories that remind people they matter even when they've made mistakes. That's what my film is about. It's what I came here to share. Colbert wasn't listening anymore. His voice rose, shrill. You think making movies about redemption gives you moral authority, but you stay silent on every issue that actually matters. That's not faith. That's just PR. Denzel took a breath, then stepped back, and in that moment, when he chose silence over retaliation, he took all the air out of the room. The studio lights seemed suddenly too bright, the stage too quiet, the audience too aware that they were no longer watching a performance, but something unraveling. Colbert's voice cracked under the weight of his own frustration. So what now? You're gonna walk away? That's how you handle accountability, by storming off a set when things get uncomfortable. Denzel didn't answer immediately. He stood still, then calmly adjusted his jacket. You want to know the difference between you and me, Stephen? Said, finally turning to face the camera instead of the host. You confuse attention with purpose, noise with truth. Hakeem, here to talk about something meaningful, a film that took years to make, that speaks to forgiveness and second chances. Instead, I've spent the last 15 minutes being interrogated like a politician caught in scandal. His tone was composed but piercing. I'm not running for office. I'm not trying to win votes. I'm telling stories that reflect the human condition. If that's not enough for you, fine. But I won't be used as bait for a viral clip. And then, for the first time, he looked directly at Colbert. With respect, I'm done here. He stepped away from the chair. Colbert, visibly shaken, threw out a last-ditch jab. So that's it? You're going to use my platform to promote your movie after calling me swine? Denzel paused at the edge of the stage, turned back, eyes locked on the host. I'm going to do what professionals do, he replied, which is honor my commitments to the cast, the crew, the message behind the work. Even if this interview didn't honor me, it wasn't loud, wasn't angry, but it hit harder than any raised voice ever could. From behind the curtain, his team stepped into motion, ushering him out quietly, phones already lighting up with calls from managers, studios, reporters. But Denzel didn't rush. As he reached the stairs, he turned back one final time. He looked not at Colbert, at the audience. Ladies and gentlemen, I want you to know this isn't what I came here to do. I came to share a piece of work I believe in. I hope when you see the film, you'll judge it for what it is, not for what happened here tonight. Then he walked off stage. The room didn't know what to do. A few people clapped. Some stood in stunned silence. Others just stared, unsure whether they'd just witnessed a career-ending disaster or something braver than anything they'd ever seen on live television. Colbert stood behind his desk, flushed fists balled. He tried to keep the show going. Okay. Well, when we come back, we've got our musical guest. But the rhythm was gone. Backstage, Denzel's longtime agent approached him with wide eyes. Denzel, I'm so sorry. We didn't know it was going to go that way. It's not your fault, he said simply, sliding on his coat with the same quiet dignity he'd carried all night. Some people show you who they are when the cameras are on. Back in the studio, Colbert was spiraling. During the break, he barked at his producers. How did this happen? How did he flip this on me? One of them, an industry veteran with decades under her belt, didn't sugarcoat it. You lost control. You pushed too far. He didn't flip anything. You gave him the high ground. Colbert tried to brush it off, but his face told the truth. He knew it. And outside the studio, the damage was already spreading. By the time the show ended, the clip was already spreading. A grainy bootleg of the moment, Denzel stood up of him, calling out Cole for turning a meaningful conversation into political theater. Twitter, TikTok, Reddit. Within minutes, hashtag Denzel walks out was trending worldwide. People weren't just reacting, they were choosing sides. Some viewers were furious, accusing Colbert of ambushing a guest under false pretenses. Others called Denzel a hero for refusing to be manipulated. A few defended the hosts, but they were quickly drowned out by a tidal wave of commentary that framed the entire segment as a breakdown of basic respect by Sunrise. The headlines were everywhere. Washington walks off Colbert, a live interview implosion. Denzel destroys late-night politics. This isn't journalism respect versus ratings. Hollywood reacts to Colbert's ambush think pieces flooded the media cycle. Columnists weighed in on the dangers of performative activism. Journalists questioned whether late-night television had crossed a line, turning from satire to spectacle at the expense of humanity and at the center of it all. 2 men. 1 who walked away with his integrity, and 1 who watched his carefully curated image unravel in real time. Inside CBS, executives were scrambling. The morning meetings were brutal. Advertisers normally focused on airtime and placement began calling with concerns. Sponsors threatened to pull back. Colbert's numbers had already been softening in recent months, but this was different. He looked petty. 1 producer admitted he went after Denzel like it was a political debate, not a film interview. And when Denzel wouldn't play along, he got personal. That afternoon, a clip from backstage leaked to the press. It showed Colbert shouting at his team during the commercial break. "How did he flip it on me? I had the moral high ground." The damage was growing. Meanwhile, Denzel kept silent. He released no statement. He made no comments to the press. When approached by reporters, all he said was, "I wish Mr. Colbert well. I hope he reflects on this. As for mine, focused on my work and the people who support it." And that's silence. It spoke louder than anything he could have said. The film opened that Friday. And despite the chaos leading up to its release, or maybe because of it, it performed incredibly well. Audiences flocked to it. Reviewers praised its message. Many noted the painful irony that a movie about redemption and second chances had been overshadowed by a late-night host's refusal to offer either. Inside the CBS offices, the tone shifted from nervous to urgent. Colbert's team was summoned to a closed-door meeting. The language wasn't sugar-coated anymore. Words like brand damage, viewer alienation, and breach of guest protocol were being thrown around like grenades. He tried to defend himself. "I was asking real questions," he argued. This wasn't a puff piece. But the executives weren't buying it. One executive leaned forward and said bluntly, "It stopped being journalism the moment it became personal." In just a few days, the numbers told the story. Ratings had plummeted. Viewership dropped by over 20%. Social sentiment, usually mixed at worst, had turned sharply negative. Comment sections were flooded with disappointed fans calling the interview cringe, cruel, and embarrassing. But it wasn't just the audience turning. Fellow celebrities began chiming in carefully, quietly, but undeniably. Handful posted cryptic tweets. Others reposted the Denzel clip with no comment, letting the moment speak for itself. One major actor wrote, "Dignity always wins. Every time." And perhaps most damning of all, several publicists went on record saying their clients were reconsidering appearances on The Late Show. Privately, some studios began pulling future talent bookings. The message was clear. If this is how guests are treated, why risk it? Colbert tried to address the situation. A few nights later, he opened the show with a half-hearted explanation. "Sometimes conversations get tough. Sometimes they get messy. But we're here to ask questions that matter." But the audience didn't laugh. It didn't applaud. It was as if the air had permanently changed. Meanwhile, Denzel stayed quiet. No press tour rebuttal. No Instagram Live. No angry op-ed, just work. Just grace. Just moving forward, and in that space where outrage was expected but not delivered, he became something even more powerful. The adult in the room. He didn't have to defend himself, because the public had already done it for him. The moment had transcended the interview to become symbolic of a culture exhausted by outrage, of viewers hungry for authenticity, of a man who wouldn't be bullied into playing a part he never auditioned for. In the end, it wasn't just a clash between a movie star and a talk show host. It was a referendum on respect. Colbert had the desk, the cameras, the platform. But Denzel had the one thing that couldn't be scripted, rehearsed, or edited: integrity. He didn't fight dirty, he didn't lash out, he simply stood his ground and walked away. And in doing so, he exposed something raw about the machinery of late-night television and the cost of confusing provocation with power. Because when the lights dimmed and the hashtags faded, only one man walked off that stage with his dignity intact. And it wasn't the one behind the desk. If you found this breakdown compelling, don't forget to like the video, subscribe, and drop a comment below. Who do you think came out of this moment with more to say? And who said too much? Let's talk about it.